the enchanting blue sphere. The oceans painted it like that. As the humans thrived on land, domesticating wild animals and plant breeds, the mighty waters evaded their conquest. They could swim, navigate, or catch life forms, but could never possess it. Yet the life forms in the water were so abundant to ignore. Thus began the story of farming aquatic life. One of the most consumed animal proteins in the whole world. And we are eating more fish than ever. About 158 million tons of it per year. That is more than double what we consumed 50 years ago. But since the 1990s, the rate of growth in fish catch has decreased. Aquaculture is bridging this gap world over. About 652 aquatic species are now farmed all over the world. It is the fastest growing food sector, already providing 56% of the world's aquatic foods. The aquaculture industry is also booming in India. The total aquaculture production in India has more than doubled between 2010 and 2020. Aquaculture farmers are keeping a close watch. They had deposited millions of larvae a few weeks back. Now it is fed at precise timings, medicated if needed, and guarded from predators. Soon they will be full grown and be leaping and bouncing around, ready for harvest. In the thousands of fish farms in Godavari, people are working towards that day. There is water everywhere. The whole region appears to be a huge water body crisscrossed by thin lines. Spread across hundreds of kilometers, the coastal districts of Andhra Pradesh has the highest number of aqua farms in the country. The state comes first in aquaculture production, followed by West Bengal. Now most of the Indian states are into aquaculture. The country is the second largest producer of aquatic animals in the world. Ponds were our traditional fish farms as early as 321 BC. Local varieties of freshwater fish brought in by floods or prawns by high tides were grown there. Feed was usually farm-made or what was naturally available in the waters. It became integral to the local diet, providing additional proteins. In the lean seasons of agriculture, it provided jobs. Aquaculture played an important role in sustaining local communities. The boom in aquaculture came later, just half a century back. In freshwater aquaculture, the Fish Farmers Development Agency was the catalyst. Objectives were poverty alleviation, food security, and livelihood for the rural poor. Thousands got employment, fish became more affordable, and it added the much-needed proteins to common people's diet. It was environmentally friendly too. Around the same time, demand for shrimp spiked in the international market. Unable to meet the demand, the world turned to shrimp farming. Seeing the opportunity, India too entered into brackish water aquaculture. Shrimp farms sprang up along the coast, and the income it generated was beyond expectations. Today, Katla, Rohu and Mrigal, all freshwater fish tops production tonnage. But the shrimp varieties cultured in brackish water ponds rakes in most of the money, about $4.7 billion from cultured shrimp exports alone in 2021-22. It is challenging to create and maintain a brackish water environment, pumping in seawater. Nevertheless, the production is booming, making India one of the biggest exporters of shrimp. The Indian aquaculture industry in total recorded 130% growth in the last decade alone. The output of 2020 was 8.6 million metric tons, second only to China. While China accounts for 55% of the world's aquaculture production, ours is a modest 8%. But it's an opportunity too. With a vast territory abundant with water bodies and floodplains, the growth potential is immense. And that is what the government and the industry are aiming at. With research, technical assistance and various schemes, yield per unit is increasing. And more importantly, new areas are coming under aquaculture. Another aquaculture method is catching on in the country. Breeding fish in open waters, known as cage culture, is already thriving in many parts of the world. Currently, we have about 3,200 marine cages producing 4,500 tons a year. Mission cage culture, initiated by the Union government, is all set to increase it manifold. In 14 states across the country, new cages are coming up in both inland and coastal waters. Targeted installation is 25,000 cages over a period of 6 years. Expected production is 75,000 metric tons, and this is just the beginning. The guidelines for sea cage farming has even higher expectations. If we do cage culture in at least 1% of the nearshore coastal waters, there could be 820,000 cages. Production will jump by 3.2 million metric tons. A very bright future awaits India, but all is not well. Fetching water was never this difficult, but with water resources depleted and contaminated, there is no other way. For freshwater aquaculture, millions of liters of water is extracted using bore wells. Krishna Basin of Andhra Pradesh has one of the largest concentrations of freshwater ponds. Now it has thousands of bore wells pumping water. Groundwater storage depletes, ponds dry up. In the brackish water aquaculture, salt water is pumped into the farms. It seeps into the wells, polluting the drinking water. As aquaculture spreads even more, the long march for water becomes longer. In the last 1 decade, shrimp farms have grown by about 54,000 hectares to reach 176,646 hectares. And it is concentrated mostly in a few places. In this district of East Godavari in Andhra Pradesh alone, around 15,531 hectares are under aquaculture and is expanding further. In Moina, Purba Medinipur of West Bengal, an estimated 7,500 hectares of land has been converted so far for freshwater aquaculture. Many other states are also in an expansion drive. For every ton of fish, aquaculture operations generate between 42 to 66 kilograms of nitrogen waste and 7.2 to 10.5 kilograms of phosphorus waste. Once the harvest is over, everything piled up at the bottom is drained out along with water. The dark, ghastly liquid flows directly into the nearest water body. The Kolleru Lake in Andhra Pradesh has the largest congregation of freshwater aquaculture ponds outside China. Once known for its biodiversity, parts of the lake are fast becoming a waste dump. Change in land use and disposal of untreated effluents spelled doom for it. The unmanaged spread of aquaculture is affecting the agriculture around it. The coconut plantations are often devastated in brackish water areas. Contaminated groundwater is taking its toll. Unable to bear the losses, many coconut farmers have left farming. Some others are still trying for a way out.
ఇది వరకు ఇదంతా కూడా సార్ వేరుశనగ కొబ్బరి వ్యవసాయాలు ఒర్రు కూడా పండిద్దండి ఇదంతా. ఇది వచ్చిన తర్వాత ఇంకేం పండదండి. కొబ్బరి చెట్లు చచ్చిపోతున్నాయి, తాడి చెట్లు వేలాది కోట్లు ఉన్న తాడి చెట్లు చచ్చిపోయాయండి. మాకు తాటికాయకి లేదు. తాటికాయ అంటే మాకు మా పిల్లలకు ఇప్పుడు కొత్త అనిపిస్తుందండి. మళ్ళీ తాటికాయలు లేవండి మాకు. సరుకు తోటలు చచ్చిపోయినాయి. ఇంకా అసలు ఏమీ లేవు. మా ఊరికి శ్మశానం. మాకు పోనీ ఏమైనా నష్టపరిహారం ఇస్తున్నారా? పోనీ మేము ఇల్లు ఎక్కడైనా ఇల్లు కట్టేసుకోండి, గవర్నమెంట్ ఏమైనా మాకు ఇస్తుందా? ఏమీ లేదు. ఉప్పు సౌళ్ళు పడి ఎడుతున్నాం ఇల్లులు. వాటర్ వస్తుందా లేకపోతే లేదు. అస్సలు మమ్మల్ని గవర్నమెంట్ కూడా ఏం పట్టించుకుంటలేదండి. మమ్మల్ని గవర్నమెంట్ పట్టించుకుంటే ఇవాళ బతుకులేందుకు? ఇంకోండి మరి ఇలాంటి తోటపాడైపోయింది. ఎవరికి కూడా పని లేదండి. ఒక్కరికి కూడా పని లేదు. అధికారుల దగ్గరికి వెళ్తాం, తిరిగి 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 మా మీద కేసులు కూడా పెట్టించి మమ్మల్ని కొట్టించి ఇన్ని చేశారండి. బోర్లు లాగినందుకు కూడా బోర్లు లాగేసామండి. మేము కొంచెం కోపం వచ్చి బోర్లు లాగేయడం కూడా జరిగింది మాకు.
It is the same story for the paddy cultivators also. In freshwater areas, the farmers are sometimes abandoning cultivation for aquaculture. When the majority of farmers in an area turn to aquaculture, the water sources and groundwater of the entire locality reportedly deplete. The rest are forced to quit paddy cultivation. Some farmers are trying to hold on. But as more areas fall under aquaculture, sooner or later, they too will have to fall in line. It looks like a siege.
সবচেয়ে যেটা বেশি ক্ষতিগ্রস্ত হচ্ছে সেটা হচ্ছে ওরা ওইখানে চাষবাস করার পর কি করছে, মাটি এবং জল মিশ্রণ করে সেটা নিয়ে গিয়ে ফেলছে নালায়। নালা থেকে নদীতে আসছে, নদী থেকে সমুদ্রে। নালায় কিছু আমাদের মৎস্যজীবী থাকে এবং সবচেয়ে বড় জিনিস, চাষবাসের জমিতে ভীষণ মাছ হতো আগে। এখানে সমুদ্রে যে মাছ হতো সেম মাছ আমাদের চাষের জমিতে হতো। চাষের জমিতে তো মাছই হচ্ছে না, তারপর নালায় গিয়ে জলটা যে পড়ছে, নালার মাছগুলো সব মরে যাচ্ছে এবং জল দূষণ হচ্ছে, সেটা গিয়ে নদীতে পড়ছে, নদীর জল দূষণ হচ্ছে, নদীর মাছ মরছে, আবার সমুদ্রে আসছে, সমুদ্রের মাছ মরছে।
The polluted water from the farms eventually reaches the sea. If the farms are nearer, harsher will be the impact. Fishers are complaining of localized diminishing catch. The destruction of mangroves for shrimp farms in some areas is reported from the coastal regions. With the nurseries for coastal fauna and the natural protection from tidal surges lost, we can expect more natural calamities.
సునామీ వచ్చినప్పుడు నేను గోదావరి పక్కనే ఉన్నాను. నేను సునామీ వచ్చినప్పుడు, సునామీ వస్తే వాటర్ ఫ్లోటింగ్ వచ్చేస్తుంది ఏంటో అనుకున్నప్పుడు సునామీ అనే పేరు కూడా తెలీదు. పైన వేరు తర పెట్టారు. తీరా చూస్తే సార్ అది సునామీ వాగభయంగా వచ్చేసి చెట్లు ఉన్నాయి సార్, మడ చెట్లు. ఆ మడ చెట్టులు ఆనుకుని ఊరి మీదకి రాకుండా ఆ మడ చెట్టులు ఆఫ్ చేయడం వల్ల మాకు గుంది గ్రామమే నిలబడింది మడ చెట్ల వల్ల. అలాగే కొంతమంది గృహ సభ్యుడు ఏం చేశారంటే అయ్యే మడ చెట్లని స్మార్ట్ మొత్తం కుక్కలేని మిషన్ తీసుకొచ్చి, పొట్టబులు కూడా మా దగ్గర ఉన్నాయి, మిషన్ తీసుకొచ్చి సాదు మొత్తం నరికేసి మడ చెట్లని చెరువులు చేస్తున్నారు. తర్వాత దాని పక్కనే మడ పక్కన ఆనుకున్న మాది బరేల గ్రౌండ్ ఉండేది. ఆ గ్రౌండ్ కూడా తవ్వేసి లేకుండా బరేలు లేకుండా మా ఇప్పుడు దానపరచడానికి కానీ బరేలు చేయడానికి కానీ ఎటువంటి ఆస్కారం లేకుండా అవి కూడా చెరువులు తవ్వేయడం జరిగింది సార్.
The Coastal Aquaculture Authority Act has specific provisions banning aquaculture within 200 meters from the high tide lines. It is also prohibited in creeks, rivers and backwaters within the coastal regulation zone. All of it is blatantly violated. On top of that, exemption is being considered for some activities starting from aquaculture hatcheries to cage culture in this zone. After all these destructive impacts, small-scale fish farmers are desperate. The cost of raw materials is going up and the price of fish is going down, taking down their profits. Only those with big farms seem to have an edge. Huge spike in production seems to have worked to the advantage of the big players, both in farming and in the market.
అంటే ఇప్పుడు వచ్చిన వాళ్ళకి బాగుంటుందండి, రాని వాళ్ళకి కొద్ది ఇదిగా ఉంటుంది కదండి. ఇప్పుడు మాకంటే రొటేషన్ అయిపోతుంది, మాకు బాగానే ఉందండి. కొంతమందికి కొంత వైరస్ వచ్చి పోయిన నీళ్ళు ఉంటాయి కదా, వాళ్ళు కొద్ది ఇదిలో ఉంటారు కదండి. ఈ రొయ్య కలిసి కూడా అందరికీ కూడా ఎదరికి వెళ్ళలేదండి. 10 మందికి 5% 10% 5% ఇది వెళ్తుందండి జనాలకి.
ఫీడ్ రేట్ పెరిగిపోతుంది, ఆయిల్ రేట్ పెరిగిపోతుంది, కరెంట్ రేట్ మొన్నే పెంచారు. సో రొయ్యల రేట్ మాత్రం పెరగట్లేదు, తగ్గుతుంది అది.
আমি বড় ফিশারি করি, বড়র মতন আছি, যে একটা ফিশারি করে সে একটার মতন আছে। আপনি দেখতে পাবেন যারা ফিশারি চাষ করে তাদের বহুর গয়নাগাটি কারুর নেই, সব ব্যাংকে নিলাম হয়ে গেছে। এগুলো কারুর নেই দে, মার্কেট সার্ভে করে দেখবেন 99% হচ্ছে যে এইরকম হচ্ছে।
এর মার্কেট হচ্ছে বিদেশি মার্কেট। এবার বিদেশের মার্কেটে আমরা তো সরাসরি মার্কেট দাম নির্ধারিত করতে পারবো না, সেখানে বিদেশি অর্থনৈতিকের উপর নির্ভর করে দাম, বা যারা এক্সপোর্টার তাদের উপর নির্ভর করে তারা কতটা আমাদের দাম দিবে তার উপর নির্ভর করে। কিন্তু এখানে দেখছি যে যেভাবে কস্টিং খরচা বেড়ে গেছে কিন্তু দাম বাড়েনি, বরঞ্চ কমছে, তার জন্য লাভের মার্জিনটাও কমে গেছে।
মোটামুটি ফার্ম যখন ছিল তখন আমি টুকিটাকি ফার্মের পিছনে সময় দিতাম এবং আমার স্ত্রী আমার ছেলেরা ওরা সময় দিত, আমি টুকিটাকি সময় দিতাম, কাজে চলে যেতাম পাশাপাশি যে সমস্ত ফার্মে। তো এখন অল্প চাষ আছে আমার, তো সেই জায়গায় রোজগারটাও কম হয়ে গেছে আগে থেকে। আগে বড় ফার্ম ছিল, এখন ছোট ফার্ম। এই শ্রমিক করেই এখন মোটামুটি রোজগার চলছে।
The 2018 Sea Cage Farming Guidelines calls for integration of all activities from cage making to hatcheries to feed mills into a cage farming system. It could potentially lead to concentration of ownership. Local communities should not be sidelined. India needs to develop a leasing policy for the farming grounds, and it should favor the local fisher communities. Large-scale and indiscriminate aquaculture with no checks and balances has not only affected the life and livelihood of the people, it is degrading the ecosystem. Aquaculture currently involves very few species. Those 652 species are identified world over for culture. Only a selected few dominate production. In India, the carp species alone contributes 71% of total inland production, of which just 3 species contribute 57%. In cage culture, currently carnivorous ones are used which are fed with live fish. A biodiverse environment is converted to favor a very few. It has turned the ecosystem upside down and now is affecting the aquaculture itself. Cycle of boom and bust seen in aquaculture is more where there is a higher intensity of monoculture of species. In brackish water, the boom in tiger prawn culture in the 1980s and 1990s was followed by a bust. The industry crashed due to widespread disease as well as degradation of the ponds. Then came the white-leg shrimp, advertised as a more disease-resistant variety. But as the farming of the new variety intensified, it too got affected by various diseases. The same happened in freshwater culture for Pangasius in Andhra Pradesh. Aquaculture started as a well-meaning endeavor to reduce stress on the sea and for better food security of the masses. And we have done a lot in providing protein to the people and contributed much in income generation. But it seems we lost our way somewhere in the journey. It's time to rethink. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, in its Code of Conduct for Responsible Fisheries, recommends the following. States should establish effective procedures specific to aquaculture to undertake appropriate environmental assessment and monitoring with the aim of minimizing adverse ecological changes and related economic and social consequences resulting from water extraction, land use, discharge of effluents, use of drugs and chemicals, and other aquaculture activities. The traditional small-scale farms cultivate multiple species. These farms are more biodiverse and have a smaller ecological footprint. These farms provide greater employment than the medium and large-scale ones. In some places, farmers rotate crops. A crop of shrimp is followed by another with a native species of fish and prawns. The polluted water is not drained out as soon as the first harvest is over. Sediments in the water are allowed to settle down in the pond, while the unsettled ones become feed for the next crop. On the other side are the large-scale farms dead set on more production, breathing disaster into everything around it. The traditional aquaculture farmers may not be producing as much fish as others, but they do not deplete groundwater aquifers. Water bodies are polluted less, and there are more fish to catch in the long run. Free from the threats of disease and other perils of intensive or semi-intensive aquaculture, this endeavor is less troublesome. These farmers potentially earn better and live better. While India is all set to go big in aquaculture, it is these fish ponds which we should never forget.